Well, my name is Charlie Vess, and I was born at Portsmouth, Virginia in 1950, and I've had a varied career moving around the country. My father was a Navy veteran, and we moved several places when I was growing up. Eventually, we settled in Coleman County, Alabama, and I'm a graduate of the University of Alabama and have a degree in journalism, and then went to the University of Mississippi Judicial College.
My name is Corky Vess. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama, where my father was doing his residency in urology at Caraway Methodist Hospital. In 1952, we moved to Natchez, and he set up his practice of urology here in Natchez, and I have virtually been here ever since. I attended public school in Natchez and went on to what was at the time MSCW, is now MUW, and graduated with a degree in education in history. I went on to, after that, went on and ironically ended up never teaching history. I happened to get into science and went back to school and got several different degrees in science, taught physical science, taught biological sciences, and ended up teaching science for 41 years in various and sundry places. Most of my teaching career was here in Natchez when I returned to Natchez.
My father was a Navy veteran, a career Navy man, and my mother worked with the ship service division, handling clerking and things like that while Dad was in the Navy. Afterwards, when they both retired, she was the assistant registrar at the University of Alabama in Huntsville, and he was the physical plant director for several years. And then they retired a second time and managed a cattle farm in Coleman, Alabama.
As I said previously, my father was a physician, practiced here for well over 50 years. My mother was a housekeeper.
Well, I have a brother, and his name is Mark Allen Vess, and he's 9 years younger than I am. And Mark was an Air Force veteran and was a specialty with a specialty in bomb disposal. And he was in Desert Storm and some other actions when he was in the Air Force, and then he retired, and he helped my dad manage our family farm for a few years, and then after that worked for bomb disposal companies on old military bases, cleaning up and disposing old bomb sites, and that's pretty much what he's done.
I have a brother and a sister. My sister is 2 3/4 years younger than I am, and she lives in Warrenton, Virginia, and she is a housekeeper. She's married to a career Navy man. However, he has retired now, but still what he does as a civilian is the same type of things that he was doing when he was in the Navy. My brother is a teacher in Raleigh, North Carolina. Well, actually, he lives in STEM, and he has just recently retired.
Well, the biggest I think that I can remember with family traditions is my mother had a very large family. There were 10 brothers and sisters in the Duke family, which was my mother's maiden name. And what I can remember was the big family gatherings. She would have all of the brothers and sisters, their husbands and wives, and all of the cousins. So when you got everybody together during a holiday season, it wouldn't be uncommon to have 35, maybe 40 people at a gathering. And of course, the food was the premier. Everybody knows that in the South you love to eat, and I'm no exception.
Okay. Family traditions. Family reunions in the summer with, unfortunately, I was a Graves. The Graves family didn't have them. The Chalk family, which my mother was, always had big family reunions, and we always went to them. A favorite family activity was a beach vacation in the summertime, and that was a real highlight. Going to spend time, spend a week or even more with both grandparents was a highlight of the summer. Going to the playground, well, the playground I don't guess was a family tradition, but that was one activity that Natchez used to have that was real fun. You would go, the neighborhood school had a playground and had playground activities all summer long. And you could go to the playground and play and play and play until it got dark, and then they'd run you home.
Okay, well, I had, of course, grandparents. The Duke family that I mentioned was on my mother's side. My grandfather was a bricklayer and a small farmer in Alabama. My grandmother was a housewife, and they raised, as I said earlier, 10 kids. And Grandpa Duke would always go to work probably at 5 in the morning, lay brick, come home. He actually plowed with a mule and would plant all kinds of vegetables and cotton and different things in his small farm in Alabama. And it basically was pretty much routine their whole life. Grandfather Duke, he died at 64, laying brick, and my grandmother lived to 93.
My maternal grandparents were from Meridian. As I said, their name was Chalk. In fact, there was at one time a Chalk school. They were fairly prominent people there in Meridian. However, in later years, I think the Depression had hit them pretty hard, and he was a salesman for a dry goods company in Meridian. My paternal grandparents lived in Laurel, and he was a city clerk, and she was a bookkeeper in a drugstore for a long time. She lived into her 90s. The other three died in their 70s.
Well, I went to several schools. As I said earlier, my dad was a career Navy man, so whatever the Navy-based school was is where I went until Dad retired from the Navy. So that would be in San Diego, Seattle, Washington, Great Lakes, Illinois, and in Virginia. And then when he retired, I went to public school in Huntsville, Alabama, and then after that went to the University of Alabama, where I graduated with a degree in international studies and journalism.
I started school at Carpenter Number 1 on North Union Street in kindergarten and went all the way through the 5th grade there. Then I went to Braden, and then after Braden, I went to Margaret Martin Junior High, and then from Margaret Martin, I went to the high school. I graduated from what is now Natchez High. At the time, it was Natchez Adams High School. And at that time, I have to brag, the school was fabulous. It was ranked like it was either number 4 or number 7 in the state. It's been a while since I was there, so I tend to forget, but it was a fine, fine school. After then, as I had said earlier, I went to MSCW, and I graduated from the W, and then went on to teach school.
Well, from the heart, we didn't get into my varied careers, which we might at some point in time, but I moved to Mississippi here in 1979, and with my journalism degree and also my photography skills, I was hired as a criminal reporter for the Natchez Democrat in 1979. And at that time, I was single, and I met Corky. We had a few dates, and what was kind of different to me, since I was partly from the rural area of Alabama, I had one date with her, and she says she'll expect me to call on her the next Saturday night. And of course, me being the way I was, I said, "Do you mean call on the phone?" And she says, "No, stupid, I mean to take me out again." So I said, "Okay." So we had another date and another date. And we pretty much at the time settled, and again, this is in the late 70s, early 80s, is every Friday night we would have a date at the Pizza Hut. Then we would go home and watch old movies together, and then I'd take her home. And eventually, after about 6 months or so, we knew that we were in love, and so I asked her to marry me. She accepted, and we got married in October of 1980.
And been married ever since.
Yep.
Well, he's fudging a little bit on the story, but that's his version of it. The truth of the matter is he came here in late December, early January, and being a true romantic, when it came to Valentine's Day, he was actually seeing me and one other girl, and he couldn't decide who was going to get the Valentine candy or who was going to get the Valentine card. And so I think he just drew straws, and I got the candy. Is that the way it went? I got the candy, and the other girl got the card, and so that meant that I won. That I got the prize, is in his mind. But at any rate, the other girl, I guess, became the consolation prize. But at any rate, we. What else do I want to say?
We had a big wedding.
We did. We had a big wedding.
Yeah. In this very room.
Yes, in this very room. And I went on to teach school, and he brought the Democrat.
No, I bought the newspaper.
The newspaper in
Fayette.
Fayette. Shortly thereafter.
Became a newspaper publisher for a few years.
And boy, that was rough. That was real rough, yo-yoing back and forth between Natchez and Fayette. And then when Ree came along, our daughter, it was even harder me picking her up and going to Fayette in the afternoon to help him with the newspaper. And so he kept it for
about 2.5 years.
2.5 years, and sold it, and then worked for
the state of Mississippi for about 7 years. And then after that, ran for judge and was a judge for almost 27 years.
You forgot going offshore?
Oh, well, yes, I worked offshore. I had different jobs, but the offshore was a big experience. Having a naval background through my parents and everything, I always wanted to go out in the ocean, and I did. And I was a safety engineer on ocean-going drilling rigs with Otico, and had a great time. Unfortunately, like a lot of people in the oil field, though, there were a lot of injuries, and the one that got injured was the safety man. So that was sort of different, but that ended my ocean-going career, and I was elected a judge here in Adams County, and like I said, for almost 27 years, remained on the bench and had a lot of very unique experiences as a minor magistrate here in Natchez.
Okay. You want to talk about any of those? Any that stand out?
Well, there could be, if I thought some, there could be some that really stand out, but basically the justice court system here in Adams County and all throughout the state is sort of like a traffic magistrate. And what you do is some go to the grand jury, some stay in your court as a misdemeanor. You handle civil cases, and basically anything dealing with legal matters here in Adams County or Mississippi starts at the justice court level. So I would see probably 2,000 to 5,000 different types of cases over the years, and had murders and rapes and robberies, and got a very good appreciation for our legal system. This is the good thing about being retired. At first I was a little bit hesitant about it, and a little depressed that I wasn't on the bench, but eventually it all settled down, and I can't wait for our next adventure. And when we go out together, no matter if we stay in town or if we go out west, it's always an adventure to us.
It is amazing to me that the four of us get along as well as we do. We can stay together
weeks,
weeks on end, and
or,
never a disagreement.
or riding the car for 10 hours with no problems. And it's a good way to be. I wish more people could do that.
Okay. One thing I did not say, my educational experience runs the gambit from South Panola School District in Batesville to Rankin County School District, Natchez Adams, Trinity, and then I finished up in Concordia Parish. And that encompasses, like I said, 42 years. For a long time, Charlie kept saying, you got to go back to teaching, go back to teaching. There is, unfortunately, no way in the world. Teaching is so unbelievably demanding. It defies description what is expected of a teacher nowadays. It's unreasonable. I'm not trained to do it now. I really am not. If you could go back and teach like we did back in the day, as the expression goes, I could do it. But all this technology, and plus the fact children have no respect
For authority figures.
For authority figures. They expect to be entertained. They don't really expect to have to do work. They expect to be entertained. And if they happen to learn during the process of being entertained, well, okay, that'll work too.
If you want to plug in, I'll just roll it off. My working career, when I finished in college at the university, I worked for the United States Senate for Senators John Sparkman in Alabama for about a year and a half in Washington, D.C., and I worked in communications with both senators and would bring communications from D.C. back to the folks in Alabama. Afterwards, I got a job as an administrative assistant and firefighter in Huntsville, Alabama, and unlike Natchez, which has a fairly small fire department, we had 326 men, 12 stations, and a budget in the 1970s of over $3.5 million. And I enjoyed that immensely, but like I explained earlier about my injury offshore, I had my lungs burnt in a chemical fire, and that ended my firefighting career. And so after that, I went back into journalism and came to Natchez, and that's how I came to Natchez with the Natchez Democrat, because I knew the publisher of the Boone chain, and he hired me over here to work with the Democrat. And after that, worked offshore, as I said, worked for the state of Mississippi, and then was a judge here for almost 27 years, elected and re-elected 7 times. So that's pretty what we did. In my leisure time, I would say cooking is one of the things. Cooking is sometimes cannot be a leisure experience, as many people know, but sampling and trying different types of food to cook outside or cook inside, we both like to do it. When we don't do that, probably one of our biggest passions that we share is that we both love film noir or old movies from the 30s, 40s, 50s that we see. Corky, not so much as me. I enjoy Westerns, and she doesn't like Westerns, but we both love old Charlie Chan movies or detective movies or things like that. And Hollywood was a different place then, and we enjoy the black and white movies that some people, they just don't know how good a really good black and white detective movie is. And Corky gets on to me sometimes because I could write the script and I'll know who was the killer probably 30 minutes before they discover the killer. And she says, don't tell me who did it. And so we enjoy that. And I think, again, That's probably our two main things
I-
when we're not traveling.
Okay, I will have to compliment my guy. When I got him, he was not a cook. He has developed this love for cooking over the years, and he has become quite good at it. He is my meat man. If I want to know something about meat, I ask him. I just turn the cooking of the meat completely over to him. I couldn't any more cook a steak than I could fly, and that's the gospel truth. The only thing that I cook that he absolutely does not cook is pork chops.
She is excellent at pork chops. It's the best pork chops you'd ever want to eat.
Okay. I hate to have to admit it, but here again, if we're gonna tell the truth, we're gonna tell the truth. I would make Charlie not quite so critical. I found that with his advanced age, he has gotten to be really critical of me. He's not critical of anybody else, just me.
Well, that's the grumpy part. And everybody probably, as you get a little older, you can't always have a smile on your face when you get up in the morning. And I guess I'm gonna have to agree. I should not be as critical, but I'm gonna tell you this. Since March of 2020, not only us two, but thousands, millions of people across the country have had to stay together in a confined space, wearing masks if they go out, if they even go out at all, or you get your groceries brought to you. But I've said it, and yes, I have been critical at times, but if we can look at each other as close as we are now, or in the other room where we watch television, over a year we've been together, and it's been almost like a house prison, and we're still here. We're still happy. I've become, or tried to become, less tolerant, but some days it just don't work. I mean,
More tolerant.
does everybody, always get up on the right side of the bed? No. So I I will say that's my excuse, but it's really no excuse. So I agree. I should not be as critical.
In other words, what you.
In other words, I'm agreeing with you.
And
And
this
that's
is
what
very
41 years of marriage will do
This
to
is
you.
very noble for him to say that, and I think what you meant to say was that you need to be more tolerant.
More tolerant.
You said less tolerant.
Ah.
Yes,
well,
I think what he meant to say was more tolerant, and this is true. I mean, I think all marriages have lived with a supreme strain with the closeness that COVID has demanded that they be.
And if you can survive it, then you probably are going to, people that are married less than 41 years will probably do just fine. And of that, I'm proud. I'm proud of our relationship, and I'm proud that we've been able to survive this and have our both have our 2 COVID shots and ready to go out west and enjoy some more of life. Well, in my case, being retired, I guess most of my legacy has already passed. And as I've said 2 or 3 times in the interview, I spent probably most of my adult career life as a jurist, and I would like to be known in the community as being firm but fair and trying to give a person a break if he deserved it, or maybe even sometime if he didn't, just as long as he learned a lesson and I learned a lesson from him. Every case that I dealt with, thousands over the years, every case I didn't treat someone as a number. I treated them as a person who had a problem. And I think at the end of it, I think the community gave me a lot of approval, having been reelected 7 times, that I was doing a fairly good job. So that would be my legacy, is that I would be remembered as a good judge and a fair judge, and one that would work with people, not against them. How about you, sweet love?
What was the question? What do I want to be remembered for? Okay, I would like to be remembered. I would like to be remembered as being a good person, kind, loving, dependable, good to people, always there when needed. Someone that someone could come to
And
if
depend on.
and know that they could that have no hesitation about coming to and asking for anything in the world from, and know that I would give gladly and willingly.
She uses big words. I unfortunately have a limited vocabulary, but that's okay.
Loquacious
if
means
I-
talkative.
Okay. If I didn't play strikes, 3 strikes, you're out. Sometimes I'd give you a second chance, but you better not see me a third chance because you don't even get up to bat if you're back a third time. And unfortunately, there are a few people like that, but most of them learned a lesson. And I'll tell you one of my favorite stories real quickly, and it
Now
could be
you're gonna have to
edited.
put this one
Yeah.
in. What,
Or
yeah,
edit or
I'm
not.
glad he's thought of something.
I had
now.
a young high school student that got into some misdemeanor trouble, serious misdemeanor trouble, and I was brought the gentleman in front of me, and I had a choice. We had a hearing on it. Barrett Martin was our county prosecuting attorney, and I don't even know that he had an appointed attorney, which was certainly his right. But at the end of it, a good friend of mine that was the Marine Corps recruiter here, his name was Brett Marks, and he's a sergeant out in California. And he told me that the young man had enlisted in the Marines. And I thought to myself, having a little bit of background knowledge in the Navy and the Marine Corps, that I could imagine nothing worse than to sentence a young man to Parris Island, Carolina, and at the end of boot camp, he would come back either a squared away Marine or he'd be back on the street and I would have to deal with him as a criminal. Well, this young man not only finished boot camp, but he got a few promotions, and about 2 years later, I was still on the bench, and this young sergeant came in, dressed in his dress blues, nice young man, and he said, "You don't remember me." And I looked at the face and I sort of remembered him. And I said to myself, "Well, hello, how are you?" And he said, "I want to tell you, you saved my life." He said, "When you did not put me in jail and you gave me a chance to become a young Marine, and I got married, I have 2 kids, and I've got a career, and it's all up to you." And I'm not a very religious person at times, but I think of the verse about you rejoice for the one that's saved and you mourn for the 99 that are lost, or something close to that. And that just made my day. It made my year that I actually helped save a person from a life of crime, and he became a squared away Marine.
Was that
Marcus Frazier?
yeah?
Yeah, that's off the record. Marcus Frazier.
Who I taught. I don't know when he went south. He was a good student when I had him, but
Well, he may have slipped again.
I
but,
guess
this was
that's
years
one
ago.
thing that I should have said. I have taught over the years, when you consider 41 years, with the predominance of them being in the Natchez public school system, I have taught thousands
Probably over 5,000.
of students, and they all remember me, and they come up to me, "Oh, Miss Vess, you were my favorite teacher." Well, I don't believe half of that, but at least they remember me and they liked me enough to come up and speak to me.
They'll stop us when we're shopping, and they'll make a specific walk over to another aisle or something, and either give her a hug or say, I remember you, you taught me. And again, having, in her career, having taught so many years, she taught a student, taught the student's mother, sometimes their grandmother, and they all seem to remember her. And one of the things that she mentioned about her legacy or life thing is that she has a big heart, and it must have reflected with all these students because they don't have to come up to you, but they did. They'd come up to her and tell her how good she was.
Thank you, dear.